Hello everyone, my name is Marco Bianconi. I'm here with my colleague Anna Larina. We both work for an engineering firm called MIC Hub. We are based in Milan and we deal with transport at different scales. We are very pleased to be part of the team. This is a great opportunity for us to be working on the reconstruction of the city and on a wider scale for the region. We will try to keep this short. There is a lot of ground to cover today in terms of the architect's presentation. We are available for any question. We are here all day, so if you have any question you would like to liaise with us, there are points you would like to discuss, we are more than available to discuss with you all stakeholders, the public, the students, and the technical team. What we'll do very quickly, we work mainly on the pilot project areas and at the scale of the city of Antakya. We have just started to tackle the wide area plan at the regional scale, so the presentation of today really focuses at the city scale. We start to work on parking generation to understand the units that the architects have been given, what kind of requirements they generate in terms of parking, and how that parking can be located. That is the case for all land uses, not only residential. We then moved on to look at the road capacity to see if general traffic plus the traffic generated by the land users can cope, if the roads can cope with that generation of traffic. We then start to look at preliminary road sections to see how roads can be a proportion to cater for a variety of uses and services. And then we will show you our key principles and key tenets of our mobility strategy, which is multimodal in nature. And I leave Anna Larina to do the presentation.
Okay. Sorry. So, hi everyone. As Marco anticipated, I would like to start with the preliminary parking generation exercise, which gives us an idea about the quantities that will be one of the base element of the future mobility strategies as well. And there are three main elements that we need to consider for this exercise, which are the land use typology. And we know that in our pilot area, we have mostly residential component. Also, we need to account for residential visitors and commercial. Of course, in future, it would be great to define what exactly we mean by commerce. Would it also consider some offices or amenities, and not only retail component? But we can discover this on the way moving forward with the project. Then quantum element is important, which is accounts for number of units, size of units, how big they are, the rates assumed for calculating parking provision, and location of the parking, which can be basement or on street. Also, we can think of some communal structures, and even putting some parking demand for retail component, for example, under the public spaces that we will see further in the presentation. So as the initial point, we looked at the parking regulations in Turkey, which accounts for minimum provision. And we noticed that the rates that are suggested are quite low. And if we run this initial parking generation exercise for a requirement of Turkey, we get more or less 2,600 car parking spaces. If we consider the sizes of the units that were provided to us a couple of weeks ago. So this number of parking is a little low, and of course it would be good to understand if we go ahead with considering this provision, or there is a room for some kind of strategies that we can apply to sort of enhance this number. We also looked at it from the different perspective. We ran population-based parking demand, and from the average population per unit and the number of units in the pilot area, we also get a similar number of parking, which is 2,000. And also, looking at the motorization rate at Hatay, we see that car ownership is quite low, but in future we believe that with the development of the city, since we need to also plan for the future population, maybe the economic conditions will evolve, and we would feel more comfortable with providing a higher number of parking, aligning with the world-class cities such as Madrid, Barcelona, London. All of them, they have a higher motorization rate because the car ownership is higher. And if you see a comparison with Turkey, it's 160 against, for example, 500 cars per 1,000 people in Milan. But as I said, the situation might change due to the possible economic situation improvement, so we would feel more comfortable to provide a little bit more parking, to have this buffer, to avoid the situation when parking grow and basically the infrastructure is not prepared for this growth. So we came up with these rates that account a little bit higher number. And this motorization rate that we're getting at the end is more aligned with the cities that we saw on the previous slide. Here you see the comparison of regulation by the Antakya and our proposal. And as a result, residential parking would be about 600 car parking spaces as per our preliminary exercise. This would mean that we can have different approach for allocating this parking, considering the only footprint under the buildings, or maybe creating a full underground block connecting all the buildings in the area. And also, as was mentioned by Antonio from Bureau Happold, it seems to be a better solution for this specific area in terms of mitigating the impact of the potential earthquake as well. Then what we decided to do with the retail parking instead, we looked at the capacity of these main streets in the pilot area. Of course, we are not going to take all 100% of these streets for the parking on both sides. Therefore, we removed 50%, accounting for some greenery that will interrupt parking spots on street, as well as some accesses to the blocks. And maybe not all street section can accommodate parking on both sides. So as a conclusion, 90% of retail parking demand will have to go or under public spaces or to dedicated parking structures. And if we look at positioning them under some public spaces, which actually comes along with the wider area concept of transportation from DB Architects that was showing multiple parking structures that were scattered through around the central area of the pilot project. So of course, if we go for more levels, we can consolidate it in a smaller footprint. And we have a couple of examples that we know very well here in Milan. We worked on it as well as MIG hub, which is Varesine in Milano. So basically they located parking under public spaces and they managed to create this greenery on top. As well as this major project in Moscow that is called Zaryadye Park. It's in the very center next to the Red Square, and here you can see the area designated for parking access, but it's well designed, so it's not really impacting the circulation and pedestrian flows. There are a couple of more examples in Helsinki of the parking under the plaza, and as well this one in Netherlands, which also was built in close proximity to the river. So as a conclusion, we would put all residential parking under the buildings. Visitor parking of residential will go on streets, and retail parking could go partially on streets or under public spaces. And where we have more space, maybe outside of the pilot area, we can think of putting them in the dedicated parking structures. Then to evaluate the capacity of the road network in the central area, we ran this very quick trip generation exercise just to see if the internal roads of the area will be able to cope with the parking provision that we account for the central master plan. And these specific numbers, they refer to the morning peak because it's the most critical for this type of development, because all the residents, they tend to leave the area in the morning. So this assumes only parking provision for residents, which is 6,000 cars, peak hour factor of 30%, and single lane capacity, which means one lane can take 1,000 cars per lane per hour. So as a result, we get number which is lower than this single lane capacity, which gives us an idea that the internal network can actually cope with the parking demand. Of course, we need to also account for the external traffic, but it still gives us a comfortable order of magnitude to see that we are moving into the right direction. Okay, and now we look at the road sections. This right-of-way of this specific road has a little bit more space than the following ones. We also looked at the initial material from DB Architects. And we think that it's a good idea to provide dedicated lanes for public transport. In this case, we say bus, because we also think that we need to look in more detail at the tram and how it's applicable to areas exposed to the earthquake, because it might be reasonable to think that the buses are more flexible in this case and maybe might cause less damage in terms of the surrounding building and the impact on them. So these couple of options we have for this other street, which currently takes a lot of traffic, but in future we believe we can reroute this traffic to this orbital road and free the central space of the roundabout. So keeping that in mind, we would provide also dedicated lane for public transport as a reserved corridor. And then probably we can also think of these setbacks as a potential space to provide bicycle lanes. Some sections, they don't have public transport, and in this case we have more freedom to put all the elements. We of course try to also provide parking on both sides where it's possible, since we envisage to put some provision for guests of residence and retail there. And speaking about this orbital road, since we want to move all the traffic from the central area, it might be that we need to envisage 2+2 for the orbital one, still preserving the dedicated lanes for bus. Otherwise, we can compromise the dedicated lanes if there is restricted space and sort of make 2 outer lanes shared between cars and buses. we looked at the central area with the roundabout, and in existing condition, it's very much car-oriented in the core of the city and limits public space because most of it is given to cars. And we have a couple of options that we think could bring some quality to the space, also considering transportation elements. So in this case, main arteria for vehicular traffic would still run through the central bridge, but we can already think of removal of the roundabout to free a little bit the public space on one side of the city. And in this case, we see that the bridge is actually quite wide, which gives us some potential for still providing pedestrian connection in the center of it, in between the public transport and the vehicular lanes. So this option could be called sort of minimum intervention, because it still contains the car movement through the central roundabout. Option 2 instead envisages to remove the car flow through the central area by rerouting the traffic through the north and south bridges. Of course, we need to evaluate in future if that's possible and what implication it has in terms of the vehicular flows, but we think we can already consider moving towards this solution because it brings a lot of benefits. In this case, central bridge will be shared between pedestrian and public transport. And we can dedicate central part of it to buses, and we still have wide parts on the both sides for pedestrian. This option is even more progressive and more beneficial in terms of the public space. You can see that all the central part of the city is freed for pedestrians, and public transport is rerouted around this sort of ring that we pushed away from the city center. And here it's important to think of realignment of the road a little bit, because for buses it's better to have some more smooth curves for movement. And as a result, all the central area will be open to some public space rearrangement. And option 4 is actually our preferred one, because we can think of providing another bridge, which actually was already envisaged, as we saw on the previous master plan studies, as a pedestrian one, but we can think of making it for public transport, completely segregating the flows of cars, public transport, and pedestrians. And then also it holds potential for future to put car traffic through it in case of need, if the road network is not coping with the transport flows for some reason. So we would concentrate on option 4 because we believe it holds more potential. And also we looked at some examples in the world for this sort of bridges that were built only for mobility for cyclists and public transport without cars, like this one in Portland, for example. But of course, we can also keep in mind that this new bridge can be for bicycle or can become some iconic connection for the new city center and hold maybe only pedestrian and bicycle traffic. This example is actually quite interesting. It's in St. Petersburg in Russia. And this bridge used to be a parking. It's very wide. But now they took cars out of it. They reduced the carriageways, keeping just one lane, and all the central space became like a green area. Okay, speaking about wider scale mobility strategies, as an initial point, we looked at this plan provided by DB Architects, And we see that there is a railway system that makes a lot of sense. Then railway network, bus network, some nostalgic tram loop in the central area, and bicycle connections. And coming back to the question of trams versus buses, we think that the tram is a large capacity system, therefore it should be somehow justified from the density standpoint of view, because it carries a lot of people and it has a high investment cost as well. And it's less flexible in case of need to refurbish the system after some possible disaster. Also in terms of geometry, it takes more space, and we actually looked at one study that was done in Zagreb. They already had an earthquake, and then they evaluated the impact of the tram that was running through the city on the buildings that were already damaged by the previous wave of the earthquake, and actually they figured out that it worsened condition very much because of the constant load of movement of the tram that it was making. So maybe also considering this fact, it's better to go for buses that are in any case more flexible system and can be adjusted for any future planning condition. And here we have this diagram that shows creating some sort of islands with low traffic. I think it also comes along with the thinking of the previous speakers. These islands can be created for lowering the traffic inside them. So everyone would be allowed to enter these super blocks, but it would be forbidden to go through them, basically. So we avoid the through traffic through this area. And within each bigger block, there would be a subdivision on the smaller urban blocks as well that would be pedestrian dominated. And as the result, we get the pedestrian dominated master plan. So the major roads would be 50 kilometers per hour speed. Then connecting roads would be 30 kilometers. And then internal smaller blocks roads could be limited to 15 kilometers per hour. So this was before the concept. We have a lot of vehicle traffic and car-dominated territory and no clear street hierarchy, while after applying this concept, we can think of some clear street hierarchy and space dedicated to slow mobility, and we can then also use it as a backbone for creating a transportation layer on top with dedicated bus lanes on these main arterial streets. And this approach would allow us to imagine a super block in the pilot project area, which is actually 600 by 1,000 meters, more or less, which comes along with also thinking of Barcelona super block, for example, and it would help us to create identity of different areas, as was already mentioned, and create some sort of sense of space. And then, of course, it can be expanded to the entire city, from a smaller city center area to all Antakya. And if we look at the old town area, by enclosing this high-speed roads loop, we would concentrate of lowering the speed of traffic on this central street that cuts through the city center. And maybe even as more aggressive and more ambitious proposal, we could think of enclosing even bigger loop to completely avoiding through traffic through the area. That would create a pedestrian-dominated environment as the result. So the strategy would be to expand this way of thinking to the entire area. Thank you.
Thank you.